Welcome into the Mental Moments podcast with your guide, Healing Hottie. Mental Moments is where we walk through life experiences, yours and mine, finding the ingredients to make life sweeter. A conversation to consider our minds, bodies, and soul, moving with gratitude one step at a time. What is people pleasing, and do you struggle with it? Today, we'll explore wanting to break the habit and building better relationships. Let's walk through this together. Welcome in. I am your host and guide, Healing Hottie. How are we feeling? Let me know. I want to hear from you. Mental Moments is a conversation, honey. And today we're talking all about people pleasing and how to break the habit. In the last episode, I talked about loving myself and how loving myself began with how I chose to express my love for others. My love for others in the beginning, unfortunately, came in the form of people pleasing, which I thought was love. I really thought that it was love. I don't know how, but we're here today. A recovering people pleaser, and truly, unfortunately, it began with an entanglement of chaos, but let me back up and let's dig in. So first we have to understand, first and foremost, that people pleasing is a trauma response. We go through certain experiences, and the natural response, the savior response, is to prevent others from going through the same thing. And it's not the same as protection. Protection is a process of sacrifice where you're very certain of the outcome and what the long-term experience and process is going to be. So again, like you've got a path that's not safe. You encourage people not to go down that path, right? But people pleasing is really you're trying to compensate for what you think the outcome might be or what they might experience this as, but you have very little consideration for like what the long-term effects are. So like, oh, I'm not gonna get them something hot because they may not want that in the morning, and I know I wouldn't want that, in the morning when you have no idea, or discouraging someone to skydive when they might like that. Like it's really putting yourself and what you may want at the forefront of the experience when you think you're considering them. Yeah, it's backwards. It's a backwards way. And it's a backwards way of really just trying to control. And look, listen, it's okay. And honestly, it took me a little while to accept that, like, I wanted to have a say-so. I wanted to have control over what the flow was going to be. And so if I can say, hey, don't do this thing, and they don't do this thing, I'm recognized for it. But again, it's putting self. When you think that you would think that you're putting people, but you're considering you in a very backwards way. And we're trying to control. And unfortunately, to do that, execute that well and perfectly in a perfect world, if we could people please, that we would have to know everything, and we do not know everything. For example, a person simply may be asking you to do something because they know that they can rely on you to do it, even though it's overextending you, it's an inconvenience to you, it's all of these things, right? And that's the other thing I want to call out with people pleasing, is that people pleasing can look like, considering what you might not want. And it can also be like a complete neglect of what you need. And so with that person who just can constantly call on you to do any and everything, whether you have the capacity to or not, and you don't create a space where you can say, hey, I don't have the capacity to, breeds this unhealthy environment where you either have to put yourself too highly or completely neglect yourself in order to exist in this space. And it burns out after a while. You get tired, you get exhausted. the other thing is that sometimes the thing that we're trying to prevent someone from experiencing may be the very thing that they need to grow. And again, we don't know everything. We don't know everybody's story. Thank God that we don't have to consider all of that. But when you try to, you may take a difficulty out of somebody's path that very well would have set them up for so many things. I can think of many times where I tried to insert myself in something, or I was on the receiving end of a people pleaser, and they took what was perceived as a difficulty out of my life, or it was deferred, that I got the opportunity to try and like practice and like, all of the things. And so because we don't know everything that we need to consider, it puts this immense amount of pressure on us, a pressure that truly we're not equipped to handle, and that's a good thing. Now, I say all of this of like, people pleasing can look like putting yourself too highly, can put yourself like just way too low, and you're trying to control things that are never meant to be within your control. That does not mean, though, that you can't be a giving person still. Nobody has it all, and because you don't have the ability to do any and everything does not make you less valuable. This is why I find the importance, again, of having a proper foundation, having a healthy relationship with people, but that starts with self. It starts with valuing, self-understanding, self-loving yourself. And the importance of running yourself is not only to keep you well, but it keeps you from running at a deficit, trying to be this good person. When you are a good person, the news flash is when you put all this goodness in you, you no longer have to try to be a good person. You will just do that. You will pour from this never-ending flow of goodness, because you truly are tapped into the right sources that keep you nourished and well. And you have to understand that loving others cannot be laced with worry, right? Worry about the outcome, because then it becomes this anxious filled thing. And again, if we don't keep our love pure and nourished and good and tapped into the right sources, it becomes hard to maintain. And so you want to give and love from a space that is simple. I just want to do that, or because they need that, and I have the ability to be a vessel in that way. To be fair, there are some things that will be a lift to support others in or to give from, right? But again, when you are nourished, it doesn't feel like that. It just feels like another day. It just feels like, well, I've built up my life, my finances, my emotional capacity, maturity, well-being in order to be able to do this. So sure, why not? And because you're shifting now from a place of like love and good and well space, right? It's also recognizing when the spaces that you're giving to are not valuing you. They're not appreciative to you. And I'm not saying that everything you give needs like an exact like, okay, thank you. Because that doesn't happen all the time. It would be great if that happened all the time. You can't give. Again, this is where we go back to our giving, what we provide outwardly can't be contingent on solely what we receive back, or placing yourself so highly in that process that it then becomes about you and less about them. But if you find yourself where you're having to be diminished and lowered and lessened, that's when you start to love from a distance. And that's when you this habit of people pleasing, that gets easier. Because when you're stuck in that cycle, it can be very hard to like say, well, I don't want to let them go, or I don't want there to be distance, or I don't want, again, you're trying to consider all these things that you can't control. But we've got to be considerate of what experiences are doing to us as well long term. And so if long term this person, these places are not good to you, it's okay to take a step back. Okay, so maybe you struggle with people pleasing. I encourage you to make 3 changes, and we're gonna start this week. This week. Number 1, start prioritizing the same amount of time that you pour into others, into yourself. And I'm not talking about God, your time with God, if that is your belief. Truly, whatever time that you need with Him, spend it. But we have 168 hours in a week. Literally take a piece of paper and calculate the amount of hours you spend doing things for other people. And look at the amount of time that you spend for yourself. And I mean, the gym counts, therapy, showering, eating, reading, whatever you do for yourself, calculate that time and make sure that it balances out. And if it does not, let's start making some changes there. And think about truly where you could feasibly make changes, because I'm also very sensitive to those out there who are caregivers or parents and responsible for many, many things. Number 2, ask those that you tend to, is the way that you love them enough? And ask if the support that you provide is meaningful and helpful to them. Now, you might not get some great answers, and you may get some really great answers. But the point of this exercise is truly to understand, this is how I think I'm pouring outwardly. How is it being received? And this is not a pass or fail thing, but truly, I think this is what I'm doing. How are you receiving it? And see where it measures up, because what may happen if you are a people pleaser, that you may find that the way that you thought you were pouring outwardly is not being received. It may not be as helpful as you think. There may be some things that you can stop. And it's not a pass or fail thing, but it's truly an opportunity, 1, to see if what you're doing is necessary. And then number 2, people pleasers at their core are truly just trying to be good to other people, or they desire to be, but being good to other people requires us to act in knowledge, okay? Write it down. Acting in knowledge, boo. It's going to save you so much time. It's going to save you a lot of energy, and it's going to be making sure that you are pouring into the right spaces and pouring the right things into those spaces. Number 3, and this one's a little bit heavier, but I want you to pay attention to the areas that leave you feeling empty. And in those areas, think of maybe 3 ways, and maybe just 1, that you can start to give in a way that is not detrimental to you. Even if that ends up meaning that you have to stop giving in the way that you currently have, you always have, and communicate through. And when I say communicate through, communicating with them, communicating with yourself, praying on it, and creating those parameters now of like, I love you, I love being loving, but what I'm doing is not very loving. It leaves me empty. It's not loving to me. And if I'm not loving to me, I can't be genuinely loving you. That was a big one. I want everyone to take a deep breath on the count of 3. 1, 2. That felt good. That was a episode, honey. That was an episode. That was one where we really had to reflect on ourselves in order to continue to be good, to do good, to good. I really enjoyed this conversation, and that's all I have today. But remember, this is a conversation. So be sure to follow us on Instagram at Mental Moments and Healing Hottie to keep this conversation going. If I can't leave you with anything else, I leave you with this. I pray that what took me 12 steps takes you 3. Keep building a life that you will be proud of, no matter how long it takes. Until next time.